When I was in the seminary, I heard a story about the way things had been in the earlier days of the Archdiocese, in the 40s maybe, or the 50s. When the habit was in one of the great cities of our country for the men of the community to bring their families to the church, to drop them off, and then go to the Cafinillo across the street and sit there with the parea and the coffee and whatever else during the entire course of the service, and then come back and pick up their families at the end. And one priest, who indeed had the church right across the street from the favorite Cafinillo, got fed up one day. So during the Orthros, when it was time for the priest to bring out the Evangelio, the Gospel, to be venerated by the people, he gave it to the people inside the church, and then he went out the doors, across the street, into the Cafinillo, and gave it to the owners and all of the men who were gathered there, and then said, "Tora elate oresis, aspame stin ecclesia." Let's go to church now. Now, we don't have a Cafinillo across the street, and the church is empty, we know, not because anyone is taking summer off and sleeping, but because everyone has gone to other places, and we are certain that they are in church. Maybe. Regardless, the story reflects something about our minds and our ideas of how life should work. There are places, we think, where the priest and the church, where Christ belongs, and there are places where he doesn't belong. Right? We all think this way. How would it be if the priest just walked into your place of work one day? It would be a little odd. And yet this is what we see happening in the gospel. Not the priest, but Christ. He goes down to the seashore. Okay. Now this is not a bikini beach with swimsuits and people sunbathing. This is a working beach. Think like the Lord is going down to the dockyards. Does a priest go down to the dockyards where the hard men work and labor and curse? Usually not. And yet the Lord goes down and he finds the working men. He finds the working men and he talks to them. Not only does he talk to them, he comes right up to them. And he calls them. And these, we are given to understand, they weren't particularly pious men before. Just everyday, working men, doing their business, talking like working men always talk, joking, laughing, cursing, working. But the Lord comes to them. He doesn't observe the normal boundaries of human life, keeping religion and piety in its little corner where everyone's comfortable with it, and leaving everyone else to go about their business. He comes right up to them. Sometimes this is why the priests walk around in church too, because it makes a little uncomfortable. We like it better if the priest is up there and we get to be down here. But the Lord didn't observe these boundaries, so sometimes the priests don't either. But he comes to us. He came to them, rather, and he said, "Hi, Come follow me. Leave your nets. Leave your work. Follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. He didn't say, come with me, leave your livelihood, your way of being, and become something else entirely. That's important. He said, come with me and I will transform what you are into a more perfect, more beautiful, more vibrant, more fulfilling version of what you have always been. You've been catching things all your life. Well, come with me and you'll catch people for salvation, he says to them. And they leave. They follow him. They are changed. They are renewed. They become something more. They leave behind their nets. And yet, in a sense, they take them with them. For every one of us has been caught in the net of these fishers of men. And indeed, we are in the midst of the fast, in preparation for the feast day, celebrating the apostles, by whose word, whose preaching, we have been blessed to come into this communion and to encounter the Lord and ourselves to be transformed. So when we reflect on our lives, on the compartments that we put things into, let us remember that these are of our making. They are for our comfort. And in most cases, we use these as an excuse to say, well, Christ said, come and follow me, but I only have to worry about that on Sunday. This is not so. Christ called the fishermen in their profession. As it happened, he called them to leave their profession and fulfill their profession in preaching. Most of us, he calls in our profession, in our lives. He calls us to take that space in which it seems so strange that Christ could come, and to bring him there ourselves. We do this easily by praying in the course of the day, by remembering the Lord. Whatever work we are doing, whatever labors and distractions consume our mind and our hands, we are still called to pray, to offer that work to God, to ask for his strength and his help as we go about that work. And in this way, we open the door. We invite him in. And a little piece of the world is made a part of the church. The kingdom of God is enlarged by our hands as the Lord works with and in and through us. This is what we are called to do. Not just the apostles. They were called to leave their labors and travel and preach. We are called to stay in our labors, usually, and labor and serve and dedicate everything that we are and everything that we do. From the greatest and most praiseworthy tasks to the meanest and most mundane, to dedicate them to the Lord. And even in the summertime, wherever we go, whatever we do, the same call is upon us. May we respond with the same joy, with the same fervor, with the same immediacy as the apostles whom we hear of today in the gospel. And let us stand and continue the divine liturgy.